House of the Dragon is coming out in just a few days, and just like Game of Thrones, it's going to be filled with tons of what I hope to be amazingly well-written characters. And I thought that it would be really, really fun to do this video. And what this video is me doing essentially a character breakdown of the 6 main characters going into House of the Dragon. Now, of course, these might not be the overall 6 main characters of the whole show. As you know, if you watched Game of Thrones, characters come and go and change like the seasons, so nothing here is set in stone. But what is factual is that these 6 characters are being advertised as essentially being the main characters going into season 1. And there will be no spoilers for House of the Dragon. There'll be no spoilers of the Dance of Dragons. I'm going to give basically just brief character breakdowns so you can have a firmer understanding and a firmer grasp of who these characters are, their place in the world as episode 1 begins. And also, before I get into it, consider subscribing if you like videos like this. I talk about House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones a lot. It's my favorite universe of all time. I'm going to talk about every episode, spoiler discussions, predictions, what I want, just tons of videos about it, but I also do tons of videos on other stuff, trailer reactions, TV show discussions on other TV shows, movies, that sort of thing. So consider subscribing. And also to subscribers on this page who aren't here necessarily for House of the Dragon, if you're still watching this far, and don't worry, other videos are coming soon. I'm doing Tales from the Walking Dead video Sunday morning. Trailer reactions are coming back soon, that sort of thing. So the first character that I want to talk about is the king himself, the person who sits upon the Iron Throne as season 1 begins, and that is King Viserys Targaryen I. Now, don't mix him up with Viserys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, who was, Daenerys' horrible older brother. Viserys Targaryen is actually considered by many to be one of the calmer Targaryen kings in the Targaryen lineage. He is the 5th king of Westeros, and his great-great-grandfather is Aegon the Conqueror. Of course, Aegon is the OG Targaryen king, the one who traveled across the Narrow Sea and conquered Westeros. But like I said, Viserys Targaryen is calmer, more level-headed, more maintained than most Targaryens who are known for their fire and their blood. And before Viserys Targaryen took the throne under his predecessor, the kingdom saw about 50 years of peace, and Viserys Targaryen really, really wants to keep this peace. Next is his daughter, Rhaenyra Targaryen. Of course, if you watch the trailers, she's being advertised as essentially the main character. She is the only surviving child of Viserys Targaryen. Viserys Targaryen has no surviving sons, so she feels like she has a claim to the throne once her father eventually passes, whenever that may be. But of course, if you watch Game of Thrones, if you're at all invested in this universe, you know that females don't necessarily have the best rights, and they're not necessarily able to claim what they consider to be their own. But since Viserys does not have any sons, no male heirs, she is his closest kin, she is his only living child, she is his full blood child, so she wants the throne for herself when and if that time ever comes. Next is Viserys' younger brother, Daemon Targaryen, of course played by Matt Smith. Again, if you've watched the trailers, if you've seen any of the other posters, you know he's going to be one of the main characters. And unlike his older brother, Daemon Targaryen shows some of those classic Targaryen traits, the things that we think of when we think of Targaryens and Targaryen kings and princes. He shows the anger, he shows the rage, he shows the violence, but of course he also shows that determined, that strength, that motivation that really drove Aegon to take over the 7 kingdoms in the first place. Random fun fact about Daemon Targaryen is he possesses Dark Sister. Dark Sister is a very iconic sword in the lore, in the history of Westeros. It was actually owned by Visenya Targaryen. Of course, she was one of Aegon the Conqueror's 2 wives. She was one of his sister wives, one of the 2 queens that he had by his side that helped him again conquer the 7 kingdoms. Now that's it for the 3 main Targaryens of House of the Dragon. Now let's talk about some of the other characters. The first being Otto Hightower. Otto Hightower is the Hand of the King. He's known to be a loyal person to both the kingdom and to the throne, and of course to the king himself. And this dude really, really does not like Daemon Targaryen. He considers Daemon Targaryen to be the greatest threat to the nation of Westeros because, of course, Otto Hightower has a brain, and he knows that Targaryen rage isn't necessarily the best thing for the kingdom. But of course, it's the Game of Thrones, it's politics. That might not be his only reason for disliking Daemon. Next is his daughter, Alicent Hightower. She grew up in the Red Keep. She grew up around royalty. She grew up around the Targaryens. She's liked by many, and she is known apparently to have good relationships more or less with most of the other main characters of the show because she grew up around them. The last character that we're going to talk about in this video is Corlys Velaryon. And yes, his last name is Velaryon, but don't mix that up with, of course, Valyria, the ancient place that the Targaryens originated from and where Valyrian steel originates. But like the Targaryens, the House of Velaryon originates from Valyria. They actually come from the same place that the Targaryens originated from. But unlike the Targaryens, they do not own dragons. They are not dragon riders, but they do make up for that in a really cool way. Corlys is known as the Sea Snake, and that is because at this point in history, he owns the ocean, essentially. He has the biggest fleet known to Westeros. So much like Euron Greyjoy and the Greyjoys in general, at this point in time, Corlys just owns the ocean. He has the biggest fleet, and also he, at this point in time, is the head of the richest family in Westeros. So again, kind of like Tywin Lannister and the House of the Lannisters, who were portrayed as the richest family of Westeros in the time that Game of Thrones took place, House Velaryon not only has the biggest fleet and the biggest navy, but also tons and tons of money. So anyway, that's the 6 main characters in House of the Dragon, at least as far as the first episode of Season 1 goes. Which character are you most excited to see on screen? Which character do you think is going to be your favorite character? And if it wasn't one of these 6 that I mentioned, which is a very realistic possibility, because don't think I'm stupid, I know there's tons of more interesting characters and great characters that are going to be in this show, not just the 6 that I happen to decide to talk about. But anyway, consider subscribing if you liked this video. Consider subscribing if you want to hear me talk about tons of things related to House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones in general. Like I said earlier in this video, when it airs, I'm going to talk about and I'm going to discuss every single episode. Non-spoiler stuff, spoiler stuff, predictions, discussion videos. And I do tons of other stuff on this channel as well. I do trailer reactions. I talk about tons of other TV shows. I talk about movies, video games every now and then, collection updates, Blu-rays, 4Ks, that sort of thing. So again, thank you for watching if you watched this far, and please let me know in the comments, what character are you looking forward to seeing the most? Who do you think is going to be your favorite character? I really want to know. For me, it's kind of a cliche answer, but it's Daemon Targaryen. This dude is going to be interesting as fuck. I have a feeling he's going to be hateable, but you're going to like him in other scenes, and you're going to love how much you hate him, and you're going to kind of hate yourself for when you grow to love him. Again, thank you for watching. Consider subscribing.